Hello, welcome everyone to the Global Open Data for Agriculture and Nutrition's webinar for the Capacity Development series. So we are very happy to have you all join us for today's webinar, which is very important and very timely as well. It is on from the Land Portal Foundation. So we are very happy to have colleagues from the Land Portal Foundation today with us to share some of their ideas and some of the work, amazing work they have been doing with all of us. For those of you who are new to GODAN, I want to take this opportunity to welcome to the Global Open Data for Agriculture and Nutrition. We are a global organization with a global network of colleagues around the world who all are working on the big aim of open data to solve global food security aspects. So, we are very diverse community from all different countries, and we welcome everyone to be part of this global initiative. I want to take this opportunity to welcome you all to our GODAN working group in capacity development. So you can see the link of the how to join. So it's a you can just go to that link and put your details, and then you will be subscribed to our mailing list. And this mailing list is where we share all our announcements as well as all the important news on different courses, different think tanks, different workshops, and all aspects on capacity development that the GODAN community is doing. So you can also share your experiences. So it's a peer learning environment as well. So if you have any queries on on open data in agriculture, please use this opportunity to join our mailing list as well as to contribute your ideas to the working group activities as well. So we are very happy to have you all involved in our capacity development efforts. So I want to now introduce our speaker, Laura from the Land Portal Foundation. She has lots of years of experience in different development sectors, and her work in Land Portal Foundation has been very important. And I'm really looking forward to Laura to share with us the work and the experiences she have on land rights, on improving global food security. Thank you, Laura, and now over to you.
Thank you, Suchit. Thank you so much. I hope you all can hear me. Good afternoon and good morning to everyone. My name is Laura Meggiolaro, and I'm team leader at the Land Portal Foundation. Just a few words on the Land Portal. Land Portal is an online free resource that improves access to information and data about land. The Land Portal is a Dutch foundation, independent Dutch foundation that has been working over the years to make available and sharing land information about land rights, land use, land cover, land governance. We work under the assumption that the information on land is very fragmented and across different websites in different geographies and subtopics. So it's very difficult for stakeholders and information providers to work across different regions to get a clear understanding of what is going on in different countries and context. Again, our assumption, we work with open data technologies under open data principles. So the assumption for us is that if data is legally and technically open and linked together, is more likely to generate a better context, to provide a better context to users, and therefore a better ground for decision making. And also, data is more likely to be reused and generate change impact at the local level. But data needs to be published responsibly. That's also our assumption. As a metadata aggregator, the Land Portal brings metadata from various sources and data types together in one place to facilitate data identification, selection, and reuse. So basically, we act as a gateway to drive users towards the wealth of resources that exist in the land sector, to whatever they are looking for. We collect a variety of different data, such as statistical data, indicators, but also bibliographic data resources, such as reports or legislations, laws, but also media content, like blogs, news, and also try to map out the sector by collecting information about organizations and, okay, now is organizations and people, experts working in the sector. We package the information in country and issue portfolio for our global audience to help digest this wealth of information that exists, and also provide them a better understanding of the situation in a given country or for a given topic, but also provide a sort of entry point that drive users to more in-depth information. And also, besides to that, we also make an extra effort to surface information from southern information providers or southern sources, which we believe is less visible, and it's worth to become more visible at the global level. And by doing that, we do that by building the local intermediaries' capacity to publish information according to open data principles and standards, to make it more interoperable and therefore discoverable online. This is part of the Land Porter Foundation efforts to democratize the information landscape in the sector, also increase transparency in a way, and improve the information ecology in a more general sense. So wherever is possible, we work to make data findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. So by implementing the FAIR principle, although I mean it's not always possible, and but at the same time, we also work to create a better infrastructure for information sharing by proposing solutions and best practices in how information should be disseminated, the use of standards, data models, ontologies for better information sharing. As Suchit introduced at the beginning, the Land Porter Foundation is part of the GODAN Action consortium. And the GODAN Action is a 3-year project supported by the UK Department of International Development, DFID, to enable data users and producers and intermediaries to engage more effectively with open data and maximize its potential for impact in the agriculture and nutrition sector. Other partners in the consortium are Altera, the Wageningen University, Agrono, the Food and Agriculture Organization, the Global Food and Agriculture Research Institute for Development Studies, Open Data Institute, and the Technical Center for Agriculture and Rural Cooperation, CTA. Last year, the consortium focused on weather data, but in 2018 is going to focus on a different thematic topic, land data and nutrition data. So today I'm here to give you sort of a preview of what GODAN Action partners are planned to do for open data and how open data on land and property rights can improve global and food security and nutrition. Okay. So let me first go through why land rights are important for agriculture and nutrition. This is a UN Habitat figure. UN Habitat states that 70% of land worldwide is unregistered, including rural and urban land, and most of which this land, of course, is in the global south. So it is globally recognized that land rights are at the foundation of food security and nutrition. Without secure land rights, groups and populations are at the risk of displacement. Not having secure land rights can have negative consequences in agriculture and nutrition because farmers cannot make investments in the long-term investments in their land, or are totally unable to get loans, mortgage from banks to use as a collateral to buy land. So, but it's not just an economic kind of problem. Land, of course, is for the land holder is not just an economic asset. We look at land in a more holistic way. Land is also culture, is also identity. So if you look at different groups in society, for instance, women with stronger land rights, they can have their bargaining power, their negotiations power within society, within their families, are reinforced. Or also, if you look at communities that live under customary regulations, or look at the indigenous communities, of course, without secure rights to their land, they're more likely to be displaced or enter into conflicts. So land rights are a critical part of the sustainable development as a whole. So increasingly recognized globally as at the core of global development, and very important for agriculture and nutrition. So that's why several land indicators were recently included in the Sustainable Development Goals. But however, defining and also maintaining and also measuring, monitoring what secure access to land and land use involves a lot of difficulties, a lot of efforts. Not only the land community need to agree upon global, robust, comparable indicators to resolve competing demands, but also finding information that is reliable, is complete, is also broadly accepted by all stakeholders. So everything constitutes a major challenge. Some difficulties comes because land is a difficult asset to measure. So land rights can the rights can relate not only to land specifically, but also to minerals or firewood, or communities can have grazing and free passage rights to a land that is owned by somebody else. That's an example. Or in some countries, for historic reason, they have a variety of means to formalizing land ownership or land rights. And then, as I said before, there are communities and groups that claim their rights because their rights has been regulated under custom regulations, like for many indigenous groups, and that's the reality of most of Africa, for instance. Other difficulties emerge from the fact that stakeholders have different requirements, different expectations, and needs different information and data about the land. So at the global level, policymakers, but also governments at the national level, they want to maintain a complete record of the land and the territory, and they want to have it done at scale. So they're looking at aggregating and comparing information over large areas, whereas by contrast, land users and farmers at the most local level are interested in the detail that relates to the land that they wish to use. So all these contrasting needs can create also asymmetries in how information about land is collected and disseminated. But as I said, the inclusion, there is a great momentum now because of the inclusion of land-related indicators in the SDGs has created this unprecedented attention to land rights, and land data collection and monitoring is really seen as very important in the sector now. At the same time, as I said, I mean, this generates a number of questions. So the SDG, I mean, the official process involves national governments and national statistical officers that are in charge of monitoring the land indicators at the country level, and they are supported by global agencies that act as custodians. Custodian agencies like the World Bank or UN Habitat are custodians for the indicator 1.4.2 that measure tenure security, whereas FAO and UN Women are custodians for indicator 5A1 and 2 that measure the gender dimension in land rights. But at the same time, so this is the official process, say, and indicators can have different stages, tiers. It's called tiers. They go from tiers 3 to tiers 1, and they need to reach tier 1 for the global, for being recognized as officially included in the SDG process. So this is how the official process look like. But at the same time, this momentum, let's say, has generated a lot of a positive drive among civil society organizations that intend to provide alternative data for measuring the SDG indicators, recognized official SDG indicators, as well as suggesting new indicators to monitor different aspects of land rights. Because as I said before, the land rights are really complex. Land is a complex asset to measure. One way open data how can open data bring value in this process? Well, what Land Portal is advocating for is, first of all, open data could help making all these different initiatives, officials and less official initiatives, visible on a global scale, so everybody knows who is doing what, who is measuring what, who is collecting what set of data. And at the same time, after having scanned, let's say, the sector, making these efforts more coordinated. I mean, by working together more effectively, efficiently, reducing duplications, reinforcing each other's, it's very important. And also, I mean, we also are very much aware that the technology can help this process, but at the same time, technology should not repeat the historic exclusions. So open standards-based information need to go with local ownership of information processes and a process of collaboration. Okay. So the Land Portal, along with the GODAN Action partners, is trying to take the opportunity to take advantage of this global attention on the data and collection and monitoring of land data, to take a step back, if you want, and look at the big picture on how we should deal with data responsibly. So yes, we want to promote open data and open standards-based information, but as I said, we also want to leverage the information that is less visible, and we want to promote the local ownership of information and local processes, and also promote this wider collaborative approach. And we hope that by doing that, I mean, we benefit a broader information ecology, which is of value for the whole land and development community. So, for instance, we encourage people, and this is the picture shows an example of a workshop that we have organized recently in Washington, we encourage everyone to think through the whole data life cycle, all the different steps, at what takes for data to be used. So basically, we encourage people to think about data collections and what are the best practices, the best way to collect data, and data management. What is the best way to manage the data, make available, or disseminate to what audience, how they should be packaged to reach a specific audience, and therefore create the desirable impact, and how we should consider the feedback and how feedback should fit into the whole cycle to improve the whole process, and what capacity is needed on these different steps. We also encourage people to think about data and information as an ecosystem, and how they are part of the ecosystem, with everyone playing different roles, with different expertise on a specific topics or at geographical level. And finally, we try to encourage these sort of conversation with the ultimate users of data, and constantly asking ourselves, what data do they need? How can we reach them? How can we package information that makes sense to them? So at the end, what we are looking at is making information actionable, so more likely to generate impact. Because of course, if data it generates is used, it is of greatest value, and it's more likely to generate the change we all aim for. So it's basically, we want to encourage everyone to think of data in a more holistic way. Not only monitoring for monitoring, but monitoring for to generate change. This year, Land Portal is, as a topical leader for land data, is proposing to within the GODAN Action consortium to take advantage of this momentum to basically adopt a multiple focus. First of all, we want to look at data from global versus local. So look at, in particular, on specific players, the aggregators, the information providers, the intermediaries that collect and share information. Let's call them aggregators. There are aggregators at the global level or the regional level, and they usually work with information providers at the local level. What we found out is, whereas there is a lot of funding and investment going on at the global level to monitor the process against SDGs, official but also alternative ways, etc. But how these efforts, data collection and monitoring efforts, do talk to the local processes. So how these, or reinforce local process. So how these collectors, aggregators at the global level actually reinforce, not duplicate efforts, but work in combination with or local information providers. So that's this kind of angle we want to analyze. But at the same time, how is data used? So what's the relationship between who collects the data and who uses the data? Is there a dialogue? Is there a conversation there? I mean, are those who collect the data aware of how the data will be used, and are the data users in the position to feed back to the data collectors? So these are a couple of aspects we would like to analyze. there are a lot of questions we want to answer and anticipate quite a number of challenges. But basically, we try to measure whether there is a gap in between local and global needs and information providers versus users of informations, and what the best practices or best ways would be to fill those gaps. One possible aspect to look at is, well, we all know that land data is very sensitive and controversial. So the land sector is really highly politicized. And therefore, opening up data, which of course would increase transparency in land transactions on entitling, reduce corruptions, etc. On one side would be great, but at the same time, it might put at risk certain vulnerable groups like indigenous or those that don't have their rights secured. It can put them at the risk of displacement. And then there is a lot of resistance in opening up data because keeping the control over the data means keeping the power and the decision-making power. So there are resistances from different individuals and communities of governments and groups in opening up the data. At the same time, we also want to encourage like an attitude, a responsible attitude towards data, in the sense that not all data should be open by default. I mean, we should all be aware of the risk, and maybe sometimes data might not be open. We can consider close restricting licenses or anonymizing certain data for security reasons. What we want to encourage is a bit of more thinking on having proper data management plans before actually approaching any data-related program and project. So, I mean, consider and encourage a responsible data use. So we want to encourage this idea of the ecosystem, but I mean, build it in a responsible way, basically. So to conclude, ultimately, I mean, the ultimate goal, of course, is we want data to generate a meaningful impact at the local level, which is where it should generate the change that all of us look for. So we want to encourage this conversation between global and regional data collection efforts, how they do align with the local needs, increase awareness and more thinking for the data, for the open data and the land sector in general, on how data should be open in a responsible way, and how opening up the data could generate and help us get in the final goal. And at the same time, building up this consciousness that we are all part of a bigger picture, of a bigger ecosystem. And where there are different players playing different roles, and each of us has a responsibility to be part of this ecosystem and contribute in a conscious, meaningful way to the to the ultimate change. So basically, let me see whether I can go to the last. Okay, it's not moving anymore, but that was my last slide. I just wanted to reiterate that, of course, we are really excited to be teaming up with the GODAN Action consortium partners and see very exciting work ahead to go deeper into these issues and to this case, land data case that I have just described, and hopefully come up with some interesting outcomes and interesting recommendations for the sector, for the land sector, but for the data, open data community more in general. So we feel that it is important for GODAN Action Consortium to tap into this global data momentum around SDGs, but keep in mind that we should aim for action, so the action side of it, if you want. And at the same time, we hope that this can sort of stimulate some thought from the land sectors and hopefully improve the whole way from people in the sector deal with data and information. Thank you very much. I'm here to answer your questions if you have any. I'm sorry, the slides.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Laura. It was very interesting presentation, and you also a lot of interesting questions are coming through from the participants. So please, participants, thank you all for joining us, and please send the questions to the chat window, and we will go through each one of them, and Laura will answer them. So first is question from Samuel Wamutu, who is asking, how can a country like Uganda benefit from these land rights, given that many farmers are subsistence with a lot of land fragmented?
Many countries where land records are substantially and incredibly fragmented, or as I said, what we can do is what the land portal as an information provider, an aggregator that operates at the global level, do to improve the situation, and we've done in other countries, is with capacity, building capacity at different level with policymakers, government officials, or information providers, so statistical officers at the country level, to really deal with data and information in a more professional way. So it can be the information can become hopefully available in a more structured way.
Following up question from Samuel as well, because he's asking, recently there has been a lot of land grabbings by powerful people in government, often leaving the vulnerable landless in abject poverty. What mechanism can help restore justice for the underprivileged so that they can ensure food security and nutrition at the household level? I think it's a very important question. Laura?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I told you that while opening up data, making it available openly, transparently, would of course increase transparency, reduce corruption, and the civil society groups would be would have more means and power to make their government accountable against these situations. But that's, as I have anticipated before, land is really political and controversial topics. So what the land portal is doing, for instance, is joining other groups at the global level. So the Open Government Partnership is a global partnership that works with governments all over the world to make them to convince them to adopt open data policies and laws and practices, and they work in different sectors. So the land is also one of the topics that they do address, and they work together with governments. Those most, I mean, we can start with those most committed, of course, governments, but that could be a good case, a good example for other countries to follow. Governments make a plan, and they need to stick to the plan they make, and they need to comply with those plans. So what we're going to do, and we started to do, is joining forces with other land concern organizations to work within existing frameworks. So in this case, the Open Government Partnership, and open a conversation with governments for them to consider opening up and adopting more transparency in the land data and information. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. I think that's a very important question as well. So yes, and can I just follow up from that question? So am I right in understanding? So your work through the Land Portal Foundation is only to governments, not to the. Are you working with the local like the smallholder farmers or NGOs, or is it just government level capacity building?
The Land Portal recognized that the information landscape is very complex. The way we like to see it is as an ecosystem with different players at different levels. The Land Portal operates more at the global level, of course. We are a global aggregator, but it means that to be able to aggregate data at the global level and to be a meaningful tool for the global audience or the audience at national level, the governments, for instance, they want to see how the country is doing on a certain issue compared to other countries. To be able to make information comparable, what we need to do is work directly with local providers, local information providers, and by doing that, we do reinforce, enhance the local ecosystem, the local information landscape. We help them building their capacity to opening up and also to publish information. Think about the most professional way of publishing information, make them visible, discoverable, so the information could be could become visible at the global level, but also at the local level. I mean, if a local information providers want to see what others are doing in a given country, they can use the Land Portal as an entry point to see who else is working in the country, who else is monitoring land data, etc. So
yeah, thanks, Laura. I think that is very useful information, and I think that answers Samuel Bamutu's question perfectly. So let us go to the next question asked by Mahtab Rashid, who asked, what are the prime activities that are carried out by the community? I would think Mahtab means by the local community, because he just asked by the community. Is it the? It's not very clear the full question. He just asked.
Yeah, but it somehow relates to the previous question. As I said, if I'm a part of a local community in a certain area, of course I have my own preferred information channels. You know, I know where to go for information in my area, in my city, or even in my country. maybe I don't go to global information sources. I prefer to go to local information sources because I'm more familiar with. So that's the ecosystem I was describing. It's not that everybody should work with everybody. I mean, the only thing we are we want to the only message we want to pass here is that the information should be linked together. So whatever, I mean, it shouldn't stick to the I mean, shouldn't be closed in silos, like in websites that do not talk to other websites or other information providers. If you free up the information, if you leave the information flow from one website to another, and you make it interoperable, so the information can be seen from different sources. You know, so disregard of what source you prefer. So even if the land portal is not working directly with communities, we work with intermediaries at a more intermediate level, and maybe those work with local information providers, and those local information providers work with communities directly.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that the community is not able to find information they are looking for in any of these places if the information is shared properly.
Yeah.
And that's where standards come to play. I mean, if you do publish information and in a proper way using standards and open data models, etc., so the information flows among in different among, more freely among different places.
Great. Thanks, Laura. That's a very good answer for that. And then we have our next question by Agapi Ishabaki, who is asking, it's a question more related to the availability of resources, I think. So he's asking, Baki is asking, is there an importance to fund more capital in open data, or finance to open data is enough at the moment? From your, what do you think?
No, maybe it wasn't very clear in my presentation, but the land sector is really much behind with regard to publishing with regard to using standards, adopting standards, using open data models, and sharing information in an open and transparent way. There is a lot of work that needs to be done. There's a lot of capacity that need to be built in there. And as I said, with this land data case, we want to work together with our partners in the consortium to look at the challenges, at the gaps, because as I said, to build up the ecosystem, I mean, in theory, everything should be really should work really smoothly, but it doesn't look like that. I mean, if you don't intervene with targeted capacity development actions at a different level in the ecosystem, the information is not likely to flow. So, and the ecosystem will never. I mean, be likely to generate the impact that we all want. So we want all the actors to play an active role within the ecosystem, so the users of the information are able to make a stronger case, a stronger demand of the information they really need. And the producer or the collector of the information are able to address those needs more carefully. So, but we need to make those two talk to each other. So that's what there's a lot of challenges, of course, but this is what we want to look into, what the challenges are for local providers of information, global aggregators, users, and collector of information to work more meaningfully together, and for the data to be used and generate the impact we all want.
Thank you. So the next question is from Wisdom Donker, who is asking, Sub-Saharan Africa has a long history of land disposition and contestation, which has resulted in various types of inequalities and a skewed distribution of land resources. Land in sub-Saharan Africa has been subject to conflict, conquest, expropriation, and exploitation, thus resulting in many discrepancies that exist today. This has greatly influenced the socio-economic and political positions of different groups of people. This situation has resulted in numerous land conflicts, and in most sub-Saharan countries, the land question and past inequalities remain unresolved. How do we address the situation?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question, and of course, it's really complex.
Yeah.
As I said, I mean, land conflict is one of the biggest problem in the land sector, and as it was pointed out now, and I'm really grateful that it was pointed out. I think information can help solving the conflicts. If land records, land transactions, use of land is properly documented in a transparent way, it will be beneficial, of course, for all of us. But there is a precondition which is that the rights to land need to be allocated to the right holders. So I mean, there is also a problem of governance. I mean, the making the information open in such a vulnerable situation. I mean, sometimes it doesn't help. It puts communities more at risk. But at the same time, opening up information can increase transparency, so can make governments accountable. So it's like a balance, and of course, everybody operating in the sector should also be able to recognize that every country has a different socioeconomic and historical context that need to be taken into consideration. But as I said, I mean, the local the local realities need to be understood, but every intervention needs collaboration from those that own the data, own the information, those that are more those that are at stake. So collaboration, conversation with governments, with civil society groups, with local data owners. I mean, that's the way to go, in my opinion. I mean, it cannot be. I mean, there is not like a magic solution, but the negotiation and conversation through multi-stakeholder platforms at the local level is what proved to demonstrate it to work most effectively. To be more sustainable, which is the most important, is need to be sustainable.
Thank you, Laura. We have so many questions coming, which is excellent. So I will try to make sure we give opportunity to people who have not answered questions, asked any questions before as well. So one question from Obasanjo Joseph Udia, he is asking what efforts are being made to ensure that rural uneducated farmers have access to open data and understand how to use them to boost their agriculture economy.
Yeah, I think this question is similar to previous questions. I mean, capacity building is the only way to go. I mean, the land portal works in collaboration with other organizations that are very good in organizing capacity building with regard to the use of data. How to share data, or how to collect data, how to use data, what does mean opening up data, how to select how to choose the best license for your data, etc., etc. All this is part of capacity building programs. CTA, ODI, they are very good in packaging this courses or trainings, and the land portal is really working closely with them to disseminate, and also GODAN is doing a great job with disseminating this information.
Thank you, Laura. Another question from Vinny Kamau, who is asking, is there a land data portal that's open where we can get basic land information?
I'm not sure I fully understand it.
Yeah, it's but what I could infer is maybe for example, maybe in Kenya, or for example, take one country in Africa. If somebody is from Africa, are they able to go to a portal and type some basic information and get that information from on basic land information? Is it available currently? Is that what Vinny is asking? Let me see, Vinny. Just following. Can this be pegged to publicly owned land? So okay. So what I think she means is, if somebody wants to get information on publicly owned land, for example, in Kenya, are you aware of any open data portals already available there to get those information?
Well, sometimes they exist. So there are, like in India, we worked very recently with a partner in India, and India released a very progressive open data policy, and they have shared online all the information, all land information they have is available for free online. The problem is that it depends on the government. So wherever information is openly available, the land portal tries to work with government to make it discoverable also through the portals. Sometimes government have their own open portals, open data portals. Through the OGP, the Open Government Partnership, they are encouraging government to build up their own open data portals, for instance. So, I mean, is it a shift in paradigm, if you want? I mean, these big open data community is trying to change the way people and government traditionally dealt with data. So to try to convince everyone that information is a public good, data should be available for everyone for free. But is a long path. And also, we realized by working with India recently that even if information is publicly available, it doesn't mean that is usable, because we discover, for instance, in the India case, that there is a lot of databases with data information measuring the very same aspects, but with different records, different governmental departments building up their data sets with measuring very similar land dimensions, but with different records. So how do you harmonize records in that case? I mean, there are a lot of challenges. So it's not just opening up data. It's not just adopting an open license and that's it. Sometimes, I mean, there is really need for data curation, data cleaning, data checking, monitoring, before the information can really be of value, can really be used by.
Oh, thank you, Laura. So again, a lot of interesting questions coming. I don't know if you will be able to go through all of them now, but what I will do is I'll try to make sure we highlight some of them before we have 5 more minutes. I'll try to get through as much as we can, but what we can do is make sure people who have interested, please join the GODAN capacity building mailing list, and we can continue the discussions online as well, so offline in the mailing list as well. So I did send a link to how to join the mailing list to everyone. So you can just go to or search for GODAN capacity development in one of the search engines, and you will find the link of how to join the mailing list, and then you can join. So let me just go to another question. I think which is from Stanley Kimau, who is asking, how do you handle situations where land is communal versus individually owned? That's quite interesting. So, Laura, how do you do that currently? When you
as I said before, for us, land rights is not just individual land rights, individual titling. I mean, we do recognize that there is a continuous of land rights. We do recognize that sometimes land is owned by communities and in groups, and they can be regulated under joint titles. Joint titles can be between a woman and a man. I mean, a couple. I mean, there is different way of regulating. Every country is different in the way it regulates rights, land rights of people. The most important thing is of course those rights need to be secured and regulated somehow for people not to be vulnerable of dispossessions or land grabbing, etc. So, I mean, we do recognize that there are different tenures, different way of regulating land rights. Okay. And yeah, exactly.
Oh, thank you, Laura. And then we have another question on what initiatives does Land Portal is doing to support capacity building in countries in relation to respect of land information management system. So it's from Wilbert Simbula.
Thank you, Wilbur. As I said, most of the capacity building activities we do through the GODAN Action consortium, because we work together with specialized agencies that are historically very strong in dealing with capacity building. But what we do is we work at a different level through massive online courses, MOOCs, through local face-to-face training with journalists or with policymakers or with intermediaries. Through our we also work under the Legend, which is a global land program under the of the DFID, and in that context, we also do a lot of capacity building. Yes, I mean, and capacity building for us could also be individual mentoring with individual information providers that are willing to open up their information, their library, their repository, or their database, and work together with us in improving their data management capacities and improving the way information is published and shared. So at different levels.
Okay.
So please get in touch with us if you have a database or a repository that you want to open up, or if you want to enhance, improve your data management capacity, feel free to get in touch with us. If you have a repository of a data set that is really you want to share with a wider land community, feel free to get in touch with the Land Portal, and we'll try to help.
Very good. That is very good response. And I think your email is in the slides as well, isn't it? So they can contact you directly. And as I told, please join the mailing list, and then we can continue, because there are so many interesting questions, and it's a pity we couldn't go through all of them. But we will try to continue these discussions. But what I will say is we'll take one more last question, and this is from Amy from DRC, who is asking, how can we include young people in policies and efforts concerning land open data?
Well, as I said, it's a generational thing. I mean, there are more young people. Probably is easier to work with young people than people that are a bit reluctant to change the way they traditionally dealt with data. So in many situations, we find young people to be at the forefront in advocating for open data, you know, becoming literally open data evangelists in their countries. So I think it is an opportunity for young people to advocate for land open data.
Yeah, thank you very much, Laura, and thank you for all the participants. Who are all asking really good questions, and please send these questions to the mailing list, and we can. Laura will be more than happy to answer you directly, or if it is a wider interest, we can discuss it the mailing list as well, because some of these questions are really of wider interest to the wider GODAN community as well. So it will be really good to get these discussions, and maybe other colleagues can share their ideas from different countries as well. So it can become more like a peer learning experience for all of us as well.